Warning: the following video may have language that some viewers may find offensive, and others are already offended. Viewer discretion is advised, but not really. No animals were hurt in the making of this 4-hour feature film.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Full Monty, a video podcast that we shoot right here in St. Thomas, Ontario. And today's guest, a lot of history back in behind this guy, and I think he's pretty well known to a lot of you out there. In 1969, at Elgin Court School, this is where my guest started his education adventure, all right, that led right through into a career. And even today, well, he's still working. He's still out there, I could say teaching still. Really?
Sort of, yes, sort of.
Sort
yeah.
of. Anybody recognize that voice yet? I don't know. Let's say in January 1st of 1990 was when he started teaching history and economics.
Yeah.
East Elgin Secondary School. What do you think? I don't know. I don't hear anybody yet. All right, so welcome to the hot seat here today on the Full Monty. We have now St. Thomas City Councillor, Steve Wookey.
Thanks very much, Tony, for having me. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Steve. I am so happy that you came in. And
what a great thing to do on a cold winter morning.
it's not a very nice morning out there, really. But yet, you know, compared to what they said we were going to have,
Yes.
we did all right.
Yeah, we're okay.
Yeah, a little ice. It's winter.
Yeah,
Canadians.
I checked the weather. My good friend up in Port Severn's getting blasted today, so that's good.
Yeah.
Good for them, not for us.
Hey, that's why we never have to worry about America coming up here and taking Canada, because they couldn't handle our winter.
No.
Nope.
No,
We sit out there for fun with the Timmies and ice fish in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Can you see them doing that?
No, they couldn't handle it. They can't handle the truth.
No, they can't handle the truth. That's right. Exactly. So, Steve, let's get into a little bit here. When you started teaching, all right, what made you, as you were growing? Well, actually, let's hold on that. Let's hold on. Let's talk a little bit about where you're born and where you grew up first.
Okay, so born in St. Thomas, the Elgin General in 1964. Grew up in its shadow on Mandeville Road. My parents, the only house I ever lived in, my parents, they owned that house from just after I was born to the time they passed away in 2014. So what happens is that nice growing up Mandeville Road, one of the little wee houses, little story and a half post-war houses.
Yeah.
I went to Elgin Court, went to Homedale, back when Homedale was pretty rough, but it was a lot of fun. Ended up at Central, went to Western, and got a degree in major history, minor in economics. And then went to Teachers College and ended up getting a job.
Now, where's Teachers College?
So I did mine, okay, here's the truth. I did okay in university, but not great. So I didn't have the first pick of faculties of education. Okay. So I ended up going up to Thunder Bay, to Lakehead, to do my Bachelor of Education. I loved it up there. It was wonderful. Yeah. We got out, we'd ski a lot, do all sorts of things. Okay. And then when I got done that, anyway, I went traveling in Europe for 3.5 months, was in Berlin a couple weeks before the wall came down. That was a wild time.
Oh, yeah,
It was a wild time.
Yeah.
And came back, and I literally stumbled into a job when I got back, because somebody had left East Elgin Secondary School who taught economics. They needed somebody to teach economics like the next day.
Okay.
And I literally got a job out of the blue.
So what is history economics? We all know history.
History, history and economics were my two separate teachers.
Okay, so they're two separate items.
But I did study economic history, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that would be actually.
Yeah.
And that's actually really important. You always know that if you don't learn your history, you don't learn your past, you're bound to repeat.
Well, this whole thing with tariffs going on right now, I mean, it's right in my wheelhouse because I study history and economics. So you know how these things work out. Like we've seen it for 500 years. I mean, more than that. You go back to England and France in the 1400s and blockades and tariffs. It's been going on for hundreds of years.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, that's a history is something I love now. When I went to public school, me and school didn't get along. When I got to high school, actually, I really liked it.
Yeah.
I had to quit when I was in 16, when I just turned 16. My dad was really sick. my mom was the only one working, and we couldn't afford it, so I had to leave school and go to work. So it was at a time when math was my number one. I loved math, and English, not so much. But now, as I grew up, history, I love history. You know, didn't really care that much. I always preferred history over geography. Didn't care for geography. Yeah. But now, man, I love learning about things in the past, the history, the people. I love going through our local cemeteries and going to some of those names and think of who they were. And
oh yeah, the Ermitingers and the coins and you name it, going
I've
way
looked
back.
up certain people and see what their contributions were, you know, in their time. And, you know, everywhere we are today is because of those people.
Oh, it's
built. Every generation builds that block and keeps the next one going. Right?
It's a non-ending, event just going on around us, and we only see it a lot of times in our own lifetime. Yeah. But when you start seeing it in the wider perspective, boy, does it help you.
Well, I've always said that everyday life is like a horse with blinders. You're just kind of going what you see. But when you open your mind and start learning in history, that's when you're taking the blinders off and you start seeing around you.
Oh yeah,
and that gives you a bigger picture, right?
And also, I find it, frankly, to be very calming, because you don't get so wound up in what's happening today, because you have this awareness of all the stuff that's happened for thousands of years, and depending on what kind of history you're interested in, you're like, as my father used to say, this too shall pass, like, because it's going to, and the next phase is going to happen. I remember when the wall came down, Berlin Wall came down. Yeah. I remember people saying, this is the end of history, and I laughed. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like.
I remember Reagan saying to Gorbachev.
This is just another part of the flow. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, but they think that's going to be the end of it.
Everyone thinks their time period is. Everybody thinks their time period is something.
Hey, I just had a tenant tell me yesterday in my building here that within the next 20, 25 years, that's going to be the end. You know, of civilization. I'm like, really? Do you know how many times I've heard that?
I never say no, but I'm like, statistically unlikely.
Even if it was, what are you going to do about it?
Yep.
So why worry on the things you cannot control?
Absolutely.
If it's not in your, and that's my thing as I've been getting older, and of course due to recent revelations that just happened, I'm like, you got to let go on a lot of stuff. Yeah. You know, and I keep trying to tell myself something I heard many years ago, like, in 50 years from now, does it matter?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter to me.
No.
I won't be here in probably 40 or 30 years. I mean, why worry?
Yep.
Why put yourself through that? It ain't going to matter.
Yeah, and I think as we get older, I'd like to think that as we get older, you get more perspective on things.
Yeah.
And
you'd hope so.
You know, by the time, like I'm 60, and by the time you reach 60, you've won some, you've lost some.
Yeah.
And you realize that, well, as long as you're still in the game, it's all about being in the game.
Now, do you feel weird when you say you're 60?
I do. I actually kind of do. 50 didn't bother me. 60 was like, wow, like,
I'm there already.
I clearly remember my father turning 60.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'm at the age now. I'm 56. I'll be 57 this June. That's the age my dad was when he died.
Yeah.
I was 18. And I sit here now thinking, man, like, he was very sick, so he did look a lot older than what. But I've had people that, you know, I see people around me and I just think, you know, could be like, how much time do I have?
Yeah.
You know, you just think of family genetics. My mom's side, they all live very old.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm already getting there now. I'm like, wow, geez. My buddy and I talked here not too long ago, and I said, Dan, do you realize this is like 45 years ago? You know, the stuff we're talking about, playing road hockey. And I'm like, man.
True story. I just this morning threw out like a comforter that my parents bought me when I went to first year university. And my wife's been wanting me to throw it out for years. I'm like, no, it's useful. It's useful. It's 41 years old.
Yeah.
Like and I used it in the back of my van to put crap on.
It's got memory.
Right? But it was time. Yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm like, 40. I've had that 41 years. But you're like, yeah, well, you're 60.
Do you know the silliest things really affect your feelings? So
yeah.
It really can get you. Eh?
Yeah. I have a little wee beard brush that I got as a gift. And it was made in West Germany. That's how old it is.
Wow. Okay.
It's from like 1983, I think. I got it. Somebody gave it to me as a little, but I'm still using it.
Are you really? Oh my God.
It's crazy.
All right.
Let's get going. Yep.
Okay. So, can you share a particular rewarding experience that you had as a teacher?
So I had a young man early on in my teaching career, and he was brilliant, but he was kind of awkward in terms of dealing with other people.
Okay.
And I remember talking to him, and I said his name still is, because Scott. And I said, okay, Scott, like, your challenge is going to be not the material. You're going to have to figure out how to get along with normal, everyday people.
Right.
Okay, so that's your challenge. And he found me years later and said, thank you for that advice. That advice made all the difference in my life going forward, because it was clear early on he had it going on, and he's been very successful. But like little things like that. Another one later in my career was, although I was not a wrestler, I was a basketball coach. I helped with the wrestling team. And I remember one time a young woman won a WASA gold medal, and she was up there on the podium, and people are cheering for her. And this is a young woman who had a really challenging life.
Okay.
And I'm like, and I was in tears. I'm like, no one's ever applauded for her before in her life. And she's up there, and I was in tears, standing at the back, because she was, she had just, and you know what I mean? Like things like that, where this person, like this was a big deal.
Right.
Right. And a chance, and so I love those things. I also love it in general when I'd have a student who hated school. And if you talk to them and you get them engaged in class, not just listening, like get them engaged, everyone likes that. And eventually, the great thing is to see after 3 or 4 weeks, them starting to change and say, they don't say it to you, but they'll say, they'll now be engaged in class. And you know what happens? Their behavior gets way better.
Oh, yeah.
Because they give a damn. Like they're engaged. They're not just there to blankly, because there's things, I became a teacher, but there's parts of school I hated. I hated sitting there and just listening, like it's boring.
Right. Yeah, engagement is huge, and when I've taught like new employees or whatever, when I was at Gearlings, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You and I both worked there.
We were there, yeah.
I became the supervisor on the lumberyard.
Yep.
So when I got new high school kids come in and teaching, so I wouldn't just take them around and show them. I'd actually work with them and then get them to, and the fastest way to get them in there. Unless it was in the power tools or something, where they guided them, but just get in there. I stayed with them. I threw things, and I said, I've never asked anyone to do anything that I haven't done myself.
For sure.
Or wouldn't do. And I know people that, they wouldn't do certain jobs, but they'll certainly make you do it. And I don't agree with that. Never did.
For me, when I was a department head, it's essential that the department heads in high school take their turn teaching the toughest classes.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, the best teachers should teach the toughest classes.
Yeah.
Okay?
So what defines a tough class?
As a teacher, when you see the schedule for the next year, which ones are going to be a problem. Problem in terms of class management, trying to get, when I say kids, it's not, I don't mean this condescending.
No.
Okay?
No.
Of course, now anybody under 50 is young for me.
Yeah.
But like getting them engaged, you just know, not really even the individual students, what kind of, like, it's going to be a challenge.
So by looking by the individual students, but also by this student and this student, when these two are together, there's a lot of issues. If there's a group of them in that class, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. I had a class one time where I had 2 lesson plans every day. I had a lesson plan, and I had a lesson plan if X student was there. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
And full on, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Because this student, and like this, I'm not being critical, but that student's behavior was volatile enough that it would change the entire dynamic class. So when that student was there, you could not do any kind of interactive group work. Yeah. Because the student would.
Okay, so I want to ask you, just because we're on this right now, what is your honest opinion when you look back to when we went to school?
Yeah.
All right, I went to school, Mitchell Public School. I remember the strap.
Yeah.
My grade 5 teacher would by the hair, pull us down, ear. My one teacher, he's passed away now. I remember he had 4 or 5 pencils he had in his fingers like this. And he walked over to my desk, and I'm doing my regular thing with my neighbor, and he screamed, "You little bastard," and he slammed that hand down, and all the pencils snapped and went up in the air, and we were just like, and I never forgot that.
Yeah.
The power, because I tried to do that one time after you put a pencil in it, I almost thought I broke my finger. And this guy did like 4 of them.
Yeah.
But when you see how we were then, you know, there were spanking straps, whatever. But you see today, I mean, there are still a lot of really good kids, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of the lack of respect, the teacher respect, the teacher for discipline. Like, does that not really get you, like, as a person?
Yeah. So this is really important. I'm glad you're asking me this because I've talked about this stuff all the time.
Okay.
The pendulum's always moving. Okay?
Okay.
And the pendulum over this side where we can beat the crap out of kids is bad. Because what if that kid, imagine that kid's growing up in an alcoholic household and they go and they're just trying to have their act together to get to school. And they go to school and then they're frankly abused by a teacher. Now disciplined, but in their mind with what they've gone through, you know. So then you get the other side of the spectrum where no one says no to anybody. No one says no and no one's letting teachers discipline. Well, that's bad as well. So, but the pendulum never stops moving, Tony. This is part of history. It never stops moving.
Okay.
And so it's not the kids' fault at all. It's our fault. It's a whole generational thing. But you know what? It's the way it goes. It's just the pendulum gets to the point where you get to the point where you're saying, okay, the average reasonable person says that's just too far. And then the pendulum will come back. I have deep faith. Okay. I have deep faith in the capacity of human beings to make good, tough decisions. And it's going to happen. But when you see this in the spectrum of things, I don't want to go back to kids having their hair pulled and stuff thrown at them in class, right?
That's right, eh?
Okay, that's a little bit too far the other way, because yes. And so I'll say one other thing while we're on the topic, because people ask me this, and I think 97% of people are okay, not angels, and I mean students, everybody. 97%. I got 97% rule. Okay.
Yeah.
And then of those other 3, 2 of those 3 with a lot of effort, we as a society, we as a school, we as a city can work with. You being here, here. We can work with those 2. They're going to take a lot of effort. 1 out of 100, we're not going to be able to work with.
Right.
And that's 1 out of 100. So if I taught 3 classes of 30 people a semester, okay, I might have 1 student who's a problem, like I mean a real problem. So I don't think that 97% rules change my mind. I'm not saying 97% are angels. But if I walk around the city, 97% of the people just want to get along and have a decent life. You know what I mean? And so this has not changed. Young people are not worse than they were when we were younger. They're just living in a completely different environment. You know, and don't get me going about social media, because I saw the rise of phones, social media, and anxiety and mental health challenges right from say 2005, right to the time I retired in 2019.
Okay.
So there's my thing about students, and again, it's the pendulum. The pendulum's going to go back because it'll have to. There's just be too many. There's too many consequences. What happens when, you know, you can't get people to be principals?
Yeah.
Well, you know, people vote with their feet. And they just will say, you know, it'd be like here, being a superintendent here. What if you can't get anybody? Well, that says something, doesn't it? So,
yeah, absolutely.
You know, what if nobody ran for city council? Nobody. Well, that says something about the situation, that it's just such a crappy situation, nobody wants to be in it. Well, then things have to change.
Right.
So I have very strong feelings about, when people criticize young people, I got a big problem with that. And if they give me any opportunity, I'll say exactly what I said to you. Like, they're not the problem, right? But the pendulum will go back.
Fair enough.
Yep,
fair enough. I mean, I've seen it where evolution, I've always said things in history repeat. Like, there's there's fads that come back.
Sure.
You know, and I have seen that in the way people parent too, that I see a lot of.
Yeah.
I've seen some now more that are kind of going back to the older style again. I do see some rotating around. I said from a long time ago, I said society is creating a monster. And this monster is going to come back home and feed someday.
Everybody, okay, here's the deal, what I say to young teachers.
Yeah.
And in politics, anything, in life. Everyone wants to know where they stand.
Yeah.
So when I was teaching, and you know, being a large dude with a deep voice certainly helped.
Oh, absolutely.
But when you make it very clear what the rules are, and you make sure, and I say to young teachers, your first job. If you say, whatever the rule is, you have to enforce it on the first time that somebody violates it. And it doesn't matter. No excuse, no nothing, no second chance.
Sure.
Because if you do what you said you were going to do, then discipline in classes takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And in life, right?
Yeah.
In politics, just
if you
it's
don't
not
follow
hard.
through,
Just do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah, you said it, don't follow through.
And then the other side of that is don't make rules that you're not willing to enforce.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's true. Now, when you assess student learning, then, what methods do you use to evaluate a student's progress?
Yeah, and this really depends on what you're teaching, what level, what kind of thing. So I'll take like classic history essay, right?
Okay.
So I went, in the old days, I have a teacher who'll remain unnamed. He knows who he is. I wrote a Macbeth essay in grade 11. Chris, you might be seeing this. And he comments in the back. It says, your essay has the organization of a shopping list, 66. Okay? Frankly, my shopping lists are outstanding. So I thought it was a compliment. So I say that tongue in cheek. You know, and because in that time period, that's what you did. So as we got away from that, and did the essay deserve 85? No.
Yeah.
No, Chris, you're probably right. But we got to a point where we started to be very clear about what we were evaluating. By the time I got done, it was really good. We had rubrics. So not only would you have rubrics, but you'd have exemplars, which is perfect because you'd show somebody, here's an essay that got 60. Here's an essay that got 75. Here's an essay that got 90. You look clips of it, obviously not the whole essay.
Right.
And you show students what that looks like.
Yeah.
All right? And in the rubric, you've got a section for communication skills. You know, like literally just grammar and all that kind of stuff, putting ideas together. Then you've got a section that is for like their ability to create a proper argument. You know, as we always say in history, a list of facts is not an argument. So if you're making an argument of picture anything, did Napoleon lose the Battle of Waterloo or did Wellington win it? You know, those kind of things, whatever it happens to be. What's the argument put forth? Like the you know what I mean?
So it's a content, and behind the question is what really you need to explain.
Yes, and there's sections, and each section, in this rubric, there'd be like what you're looking for.
Okay.
So in the end, you're not correcting all their grammar. You're kind of circling, and here's where you're at. Now with AI now, I don't know how my colleagues mark essays, but like that's how you do it. So you're evaluating different things. But in my mind, how about this one? You've used 5 resources. How have you been able to pull those information from those 5 resources together? Yeah. Because synthesizing something together is very different than just listing facts. It's actually quite it's more complicated than meets the eye. So that number in the end doesn't mean much because I've had students who have really good ideas, but they have real trouble putting them together. Right? And that's a completely different skill.
Yeah.
So they might do very well on the argument, like writing an argument and creating a point, but they might do very poorly on another aspect, which is like literally paragraph structure. Like, you know, things like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've always said too, and I've told some of the younger kids when we had them at the yard, you know, some kids got frustrated because they couldn't see, like for measuring tape measures and things like that. But I said, you know what, don't ever worry about it, don't sweat it. I said, every person that walks this planet has a special gift. Somebody's good at something. Some people are good at multiple things, but I said, you just need to find what it is for you.
And for me, Tony, I got lucky.
Yeah.
Because I never wanted to be a teacher, right? Like I was always going to be a lawyer.
Oh, were you really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when I was about third year university, I remember we'd go to parties and I'd ask somebody, what are you studying? And they'd say, biochemistry. I said, that sounds really interesting. And they'd say, what are you studying? I'd say history, and their faces would drop. And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, history's fascinating. So that actually was the thing. I'm like, wow, it got me thinking about teaching.
Okay.
So that's how I got into it.
That's what swayed you over. So what would be some of the most misconceptions about teaching that you find?
I mean, the tropes about it, the time off, easy job, those who.
I was going to say that. So people say, okay, well, I'd like to get a job where I have all summer off. I want a job. People don't realize, I've had friends that were teachers, that how much money they spent out of their own pocket to cover things for students that we used to have covered. When I went to school, we had all our pencil crayons and everything that we wanted was there.
Yeah.
Now it's like, you have to go buy everything.
Well, I always had a joke, Tony, that was kind of a joke, no joke, like a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
And I'd say to people, on any given day, I can be either an effective teacher or an effective parent, but it's challenging to be both in the same day.
True.
So, like, what I mean by that is that, like, I love teaching.
Yeah.
I love being with people, but boy, you're having to control behavior for 75 minutes and keep people on the same page.
Yeah.
Picture that.
Yeah.
So 90% of teaching is people management.
Yeah.
So try to keep people together. And so it's in your self-interest as a teacher to do things that are interesting, engaging, and everything else, because when people are engaged, they're well behaved.
True.
You know what I mean? So
True.
There's crappy teachers.
So what do teachers do? So now, well, back at, what was it? What do they call them now? PD days? PD? I mean, I think it was PA days when I was
same
back
kind,
then.
yeah.
So when that day happens, are you, as the teacher, still at the school doing stuff, or are you off?
No, we're not off.
So this is where that misconception is, right?
Okay,
so we're talking about that.
Okay, so here's the full Monty.
Okay.
I hated PD days because I hated staff meetings.
Oh, okay.
No offense to my colleagues, who were my principals, but it's like, I'm not a good student.
Okay.
Like, I'm the guy who's, I'm not a good student.
You want to be up there giving direction, not taking the direction.
I'm okay listening for a while.
Yeah.
But after a while, I start tuning out. But there's all this board-mandated training that you have to do, right? For like anything, right? Okay. So you have to do it. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. And I'm not, and again, I love my job. And every job's got those staff meetings that you don't want to go to.
Yep.
And that's just what these things are.
Now, that's just that school, you're in their boardroom or whatever, like
you're in
teachers,
the library
principal.
usually. So the principal's handed an agenda by the board office saying, this is what you're doing this morning.
Okay.
So this is your program.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about literacy, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And so there's an agenda, like any meeting, and you follow the agenda, and that's what goes on a PD day.
Okay.
Sometimes there's PD where you go off school site so all the physics teachers would get together and talk about something, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not norm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yeah, sure.
Then. So, now when you were teaching, right off the top of your head, what was one of the funniest things ever happened?
Oh my God, there's so many funny things.
Now, it can be to you or either a student.
Okay, so 100 things happen, and a lot with staff members. Like students were funny, but it's not like it's a little bit because it's business.
Yeah.
Okay. I once had a student write an essay, and a law essay. I taught law as well, and the essay was brilliant. Too brilliant.
Okay.
I checked it. It wasn't plagiarized. The thing is, Mom had a master's degree in English. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, I'm sure Mom wrote it.
Okay.
Now, Tony, what makes it funny is, it was brilliant. It was referenced. Everything's great. The title on it is, What Uganda Do About Blank. Uganda as the country. It said Uganda on the top of the page. What Uganda do about blank. I won't give the legal topic.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the title on the top. And I know exactly what happened. Mom gets done the essay, and the daughter yells down from bedroom, "Hey, there's no title." And the mom says, "Yeah, write down, what can you do about blah, blah, blah." But the student writes in a U, like what you, and then it autocorrects to Uganda.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, autocorrect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
wrote
silly story, but that's really funny.
That's funny.
Like what Uganda do. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God.
And was this a person that you never really thought would have done this?
Oh, Tony, you know, like in life, you just don't know who's going to do what.
Yeah.
You never know. Like,
Yeah.
so, anyway, so that's
All
just, that's one of many
Now let's
things.
flip it though. What was one of the saddest things that you ever experienced through that career?
Oh,
with
yeah.
students?
So this is tough one to even talk about all these
Yeah.
years later. When I was at East Elgin, the 5 years I was there, every single year, a student of mine died.
Oh, no, really?
Car accidents, mostly.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I think it was after, I started in January, so I think it was a year and a half after I started teaching. This is before cell phones and everything.
Okay.
I was away in the summer and I came back and a student found my number and called my apartment in London where I was living at the time and said, I just want to let you know that so-and-so passed away in a car accident, this wonderful young woman. And it wasn't her fault. The truck, her boyfriend lost control of the truck. He was not impaired, and she ended up being ejected from the vehicle and dying.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, students dying is by far the worst.
Harder,
Yeah, and it was like all, like, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
A lot of car accidents. And, you know, and then one of my little guys who was a cystic fibrosis guy passed away after I was gone from East Elgin, but that hurt.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, really late in my career, one of my last years, there was a student who was late all the time, and I talked to her in the hallway, and she was really tough. Talked to her in the hallway, and this tough girl, right? And so I said, look, blank person, like, you're late every day, and like it's tough for me because if I let you just walk in late, then why is there anybody else going to come on time?
True.
And I said, I don't want to make this a big deal, but she started crying. Well, here's the story. She came from a household that was very unstable, okay, where like mom would have people over late at night on weeknights partying it up while she's trying to sleep in the basement. And there's more to it going on than that. Like, I believe there's abuse going on.
Okay.
But like, for her to cry in front of me, and I'm like, oh my God, like, so what I realized then, Tony, was she was doing all she could to get to school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't about being on time. It was about.
It'd break your heart, really, wouldn't it?
Yes, it does. But then she's talking to me. So we stand in the hallway for a few minutes. She gets herself together. I get myself together, and I got to go back and teach.
Yeah.
And that happened like my last couple of years of teaching, right? And so. Yeah. You know, that's stuff like that's really sad, but I got a job to do, and she frankly has a job to do as well.
Yep.
And you know,
I've had many experiences in my life where I remember as a kid, one of the things I do remember my dad as being a police officer, and we were talking about accident scenes and different things, and he just said there were many times that he dealt with stuff that it was 3, 4, or 5 days later, and then it would hit him. And I found that as I applied a lot of things in my life and certain things I've gone through, and just recently with my mom's passing, and you do it, you get through it. You always sometimes want, how did I do it? How did I even get through it?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I went up, and even before she had passed, I said to Al Houston when we did our taping that I spent that week prior to the funeral home trying to arrange everything, and I said I wanted it because I didn't know after this was done how I was going to be. Could I deal with it then? So I thought, you know what, we'll just do it now. I said, I'm glad I did because it gave me something to focus on, get me through it, you know. And now we're after this, you know, now it's waiting to see, you know. But you do. It's amazing how you get through certain things, and you just have to get through it, and then you will take a look at it later.
Yeah, and my dad was a cop too for 35 years in St. Thomas, right?
Okay.
So like he was the most relaxed guy. But like there were times he'd come home, and he was not a drinker. He'd sit there reading the paper, but you'd notice the page never turned.
Oh yeah.
So he was just sitting there,
he's just
staring
blank.
at the page, he's just tuning out.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what happened that day.
No.
He was very good about not talking about stuff. But the one thing my dad could never do. Yeah. He could never eat white rice. This is horrible for me to say, but this is full Monty.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember one time my mom was working afternoons at the hospital, and we had dinner, and he didn't touch. He was a depression baby. He would eat anything. Yeah. But he didn't eat the white rice, and this is terrible for me to say, but it's true. My sister said, "Why aren't you eating the rice?" And he just paused, didn't say anything. And my sister was like, "Goes, when you find bodies that have been dead for a while, the white rice
Maggots.
looks like maggots.
Maggots. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, so that was,
I totally get it.
that's why he didn't eat white rice.
That was his
and
reference.
I never thought about that, Tony.
Yep.
My mom never made white rice.
Never made it after.
Ever.
That was it
Well,
after
no,
that?
this was us making dinner when she was at work.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
So like
she was already aware of that.
Yeah, she was aware of it.
Okay. Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we
I get
weren't,
it.
we weren't, right?
Yep.
So we
I
made
get
something
it.
up for dinner. And he
get it.
just...
See,
I'm
I
like,
couldn't. My mom always used to talk about when they were kids in England growing up, and my dad from Belgium, but they used to use maggots for fishing. That's huge for fish. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that was the most disgusting thing when I'd see those. So,
Yep.
yeah, no, I
So
get
that's
it.
just, you know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
we all, but everyone has to go on and do their job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it all takes a toll.
Yeah.
No one gets out scot-free.
Oh,
on anything,
absolutely.
right?
Nobody
and,
does.
And then
No,
you've just
I
got
don't
to figure
care.
out.
I don't care how big and tough you are.
Yeah.
There's something that can bring you down so fast.
Well, you just got to,
Yep.
you know, you have to have some kind of healthy outlet.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is.
No. But you know what? But I appreciate those things too, because when I really do have not so good days, but I've said I don't like going through them, but kind of I do, because when I come out the other side, you feel so good. And I said, if it wasn't for these really down days or days that you have to fight, you'll never appreciate these really good ones.
Oh yeah, like
And that's
everyone's life. There's pain in everyone's life.
oh yeah.
And I'm a big I taught world religions actually for a couple of years. So I learned a lot about Buddhism. And and in Buddhism it's all about acceptance.
Okay.
And I think that's a big thing in life. Like you got to accept that things are hard.
Yeah.
And you got to accept there's pain.
Yeah.
And then but you also have to accept, as my father would say, this too shall pass. That there's an ebb and flow of everything.
Yeah.
The Wheel of Fortune is actually a Eastern religion concept. It's not just a TV show. So the Wheel of Fortune that's just what it is. Is it just things go up, things go down, things go up, things go down.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. Let's move along now.
Sure.
So we're no longer teaching.
Yep.
Okay, that's gone.
Yep.
Now you're in council.
Yep.
Okay. So what made you want to run for council for
Okay.
St. Thomas?
So going back, as a little child, I loved history, loved politics. I was the kid when I was 7 years old watching Walter Cronkite read the news, and I knew where everything was in the world. My dad had my grandpa's old shortwave radio in the basement. I'd play darts in the basement and listen to stations I did not know they're saying, but it was China, it was Russia, it was whatever. So even as a little kid, I don't know why. Why do people like fixing motorcycles? I don't know. Why do people make quilts? I don't know. But I always loved history and politics, even as a kid. Okay. I loved reading political cartoon books.
Did you ever go to a past life regressionist?
No.
Do you? I mean, seriously, like so many people believe in that, some don't. Whatever floats your boat. Yeah. But it'd be cool. You should go just for tickles and giggles, just to see if they come up with something that all of a sudden you may go, wow.
Well,
really?
I'd
Who
have
knows?
to.
Maybe that's something in your past.
That could be a drinking game one night. I'm not sure.
Well, that's not probably the kind that you want to find out.
So as a kid, I loved this. So as I grew up, when I was young, I thought I'm going to run for politics someday. Like I always thought, maybe I'll be a member of parliament, whatever. So then you start teaching. You work your ass off. You're coaching. I was coaching basketball. You're working your ass off. Then I met my wife.
Yeah.
So then we get together. We didn't meet till I was 30 and she was 27. So then you meet. You get together, you have kids. Okay. Then after our kids were starting to grow, both my parents' health really failed. So then they needed support. So that was never going to work just because by the time that was all over, I was like 45, say. Okay. Well, after my kids were done doing things like travel sports or lesson music stuff, I sat around and thought, I'd really like to run for city council. Okay. And so I was 50 when I ran in 2014 and was successful. And so I was still teaching. I still was teaching for 5 years. So now that was busy. So, and I was coaching. So those were 5 pretty crazy years. But, I'm not complaining.
Okay, but now you're teaching and you're busy, but you're on council. So now is there a minimum requirement of how many not council, but committees that you have to chair? Or is it up to you how many you want?
Okay, Tony, that's a great question. That's a great question. There's no rules.
Okay.
So
all right.
we get together, essentially in a closed session, and here's the list, and here's what we as a group have to cover.
Okay.
And then people will say, here's what I'd like, here's what I'd like. So it's like need him, got him. So it's just like trading hockey cards. So in the end, you might get stuck with a committee that you're not really interested in, but that's the way it goes. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's how that goes. For me, when I was still teaching, there were ones that I could do and not have to miss work. So for instance, there were ones that start at 3:30 or they're 4 o'clock meetings versus 10 a.m. meetings. And we all know when the meetings are. We all know how many times a month. And then people are good. And then what happens, usually about the halfway through the term, we'll sit down one night and say, this is in closed session, to say, okay, does anybody want to make a trade?
Okay, yeah, I get it.
So it's legit, and if somebody, like for instance, with Tara McCully, as of filming this, Tara has resigned from council because she's got far greater job obligations now. When the new person comes in, will they just pick up Tara's, or will there be, well, that's totally up to us. And that,
okay, so you'll all sit down, discuss that in session.
And some people have a passion for things and they want to do that.
But now how does that seat get filled?
So
is it just a council appointee?
Yes.
Does that run by the previous elections? Do they run by who ran at that time and they take the next incumbent, say that?
So this is really good. Now, by the time this hits the air, we'll know the answer to who will replace it. But here's what happens. There can be a by-election.
Okay.
For $100,000, which I don't think we're going to do, but we're going to make that decision next week.
Okay.
So somebody's going to be appointed. There's no rules except for we can appoint any eligible elector in the city of St. Thomas. So anybody who can vote in St. Thomas, we could appoint.
Okay, now just say that I finally, I've wanted to run 3 times. Now finally I say, I want to go. Can somebody, say me, can I throw my name in there now for Tara's seat, or does that have to be somebody that's already in?
No, it can be anybody. I mean, you could call the 8 of us today and say, hey, I'd be pleased to be considered for this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's
Okay.
That's totally, you're free to do that, right?
See, I didn't know how that was. Like if if it ran by, so we got to go back and look at the last election. We see how many votes were casted by who, and then we take the next.
We just got some information actually a couple of days ago because one of the councilors was asking, so they sent out to everybody. I think there was, of the last, say, six council spots came open, 2 were former city councilors who were appointed, 2 were former city councilor candidates who were appointed, and 2 were former mayoral candidates who were appointed. That's how I got back on. Because I got back on when Linda Stevenson passed away.
Yes.
Loved Linda.
Yeah, I did too.
I was I ran for mayor and lost. So then I was just doing my thing. Like I'd retired from teaching. I was working home hardware.
Yep.
Loving it. Golfing and all that kind of stuff. So when that happened, somebody reached out to me and said, what do you think about doing this? And I hadn't even thought about it. I'm like, yeah, actually, that would be enjoyable. I'm done teaching. I got lots of time on my hands. So then I contacted the clerk's office to say, hey, if you need somebody, I'm house trained. I know what the routine is that I could fit in, but I never thought about it.
Right.
And so that worked out. And then I was only going to do it for the rest of the term, but I really liked it because when you're retired and on city council, it's a whole different deal.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole, when you're kind of retired, there's just so much less pressure on everything in life. So I've really enjoyed it, and I still really enjoy it.
I know. One day, I'm there. I'm almost at that line now where I want to go.
Yeah.
I've been at City Hall for many years, way back from Rogers' days when Cliff. Cliff was mayor at that time. Yeah. And I used to go and film. That was when we sat in that little room at the back and did all the putting the bugs up, the names and councilors, and got to know members of council. And I loved Cliff back at that time because no matter what I needed, a call. He's like, come on over, and we'd sit in his office. And he was so approachable. Yep. And I find Joe that way. Whenever I need something from Joe, he's like right there. Joe's been a friend.
90% of being a politician is just deal reasonably with people. It's not rocket science, man. It's like,
well, and that's what brings me back to social media and why I hate social media is just because of the amount of bashing and the keyboard warriors and the nastiness, and it just at times I understand why some people in a position of public life don't want to see. They
And
don't have social media.
Just so you know, there's, and I won't say what they are, but I have Facebook, but I'm not on much.
Yeah.
I don't read much. If somebody does tag me, that what I'll say is, anybody that wants to talk to me, and any of your viewers, anybody wants to talk about anything, like just contact me. My phone number. My phone number is on the city website. Yep. My email address is there.
Yep.
Contact me about anything. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, usually within 24 hours.
Yep.
So instead, and that has resulted in many very constructive conversations where I learn something, they learn something, and it's collegial.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned a long time ago that a lot of it is people, you just have to listen. And then I like to repeat a lot of what they said so that they know I heard.
Yeah.
And then that's how, because I deal with, sometimes there's some pretty irate tenants in here that, they're getting rent increases or something comes in from LTB, and it's just sit down and talk to them.
Yeah.
Like it's just,
Yeah, and
But I mean, I don't care where you come from. There's always those that are just, they were born that way. They just nasty. There are some people that are just, it don't matter what you do.
And I'm going to say that teaching was great preparation for being in politics.
It would be.
Because when people, and it doesn't happen very often, Tony, when people get really nasty with you, like you've heard this, before. So it's not, you don't get freaked out about it. It's
so when you became a counselor though, was it ever, did you think, yeah, this is pretty cool? Or did you ever have moments like, Jesus, what the hell did I get into?
No, I never thought that, what the hell did I get into?
No?
I
so
enjoyed
it was a good experience then.
Oh yeah, I've always loved politics, and I love the process. I love how decisions are made, policies are made. I love the fact that what I'm doing is helping my community, but I'm doing something I really like.
Cool.
Like, how much better is it getting than that?
I did ask Rose when I had her in when we first started this last season, and I asked her, I said, when you came in as a brand newbie, you're a newborn to this. Yeah. Even though you tried to run 1,500 times, but you finally got in. How was the reception to the other counselors? Did they welcome you, open arms? What? And she said it was just fantastic. Yeah. She said they were all there to help if I needed anything. They were all there.
I'm going to say, every counselor has a different thing they offer.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love it. Yeah. Because everyone's got something that somebody else doesn't have in terms of a skill, a perspective, a way of looking at things. It's wonderful.
Okay. Now, so what's your thoughts on how we have an open council now, or I would imagine in the future we will be dealing with this, but wards?
I hate wards.
You hate wards.
I can't stand it.
Okay.
And I can't. And now I always say the day you can, if you can try me on, don't do it right now. I don't want to get embarrassed. If you give me 3 streets and I don't know where any of them are, then we can have ward system. Okay. But what at large does, Tony, is like, because I was born here, raised here, there'll be people in different parts of the city that will contact me about things because they know me. Okay. So you don't have to contact the person in your ward. So we all get, so the thing is, I have a lot of really positive conversations, sometimes very difficult conversations, with people I know. Maybe I might have taught their children, or them old friends, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's a background, and there's a trust level. So they're very productive discussions, okay, because they're honest. When it's a ward, you're stuck talking to that person. Yeah. And the problem with wards, and I'll say this for the audience, the problem is then you get people infighting. Well, those roads got fixed in your ward, not my ward.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
So then it's a civil war. Whereas where we are, the beautiful thing is we're unified. Like, we can all look out for what's best for the city, not for a little part. But between the 9 of us, do you think there's an area of the city that we don't know what's going on? No, we know what's going on. Yeah.
So in your future perception, when do you think we probably would be looking at
That's a really good decision. That's a really good question. The decision on that one, like,
it's probably already been coming up.
Yeah, it does. It does come once in a while. See, you can even tell me I'm doing this. I'm in denial because I don't want it ever to happen. But at some point, it gets unmanageable. We're not there. Like, so let's say we're 50,000 people right now in the city, even though signs say whatever. When you get to like 75,000, but I will hopefully not be on council then, because the dynamic will fundamentally change, and it's a tough one.
For a past guest, we were just talking about this, and we said about population St. Thomas at some point, I think it was with Kate Burns. Okay. And I said, 150 years from now, we could be 1.5 million in this area. Like, who knows?
Oh, it'll be like,
the way-
it could be like Metro Toronto, Mississauga. Like St. Thomas will grow into London and it'll just be one,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The
Like it'll just-
amalgamation's going to happen. We're just going to gobble up
who
in
knows?
one huge. Yeah,
Hard to say.
that's yeah. No, it's coming.
Yeah.
So I always wondered though what people's perception was about wards or.
Yeah,
an open-
I'll go down in flames on that one, and that's one that I
Okay.
will be prepared to defend very
Fair enough.
strongly.
That's who you are, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now to run for a council seat
Mm-hmm.
though, so what's all involved? So when an election's called,
Yeah.
you know there's one coming up. So let's take it right from the start.
Okay, so from the start,
you're going to run.
it's really I want to run.
You decided the wife says, "All right, I'll let you."
Okay, so the first step, you go up to City Hall and you get a nomination form. You got to get X number of people to sign it who are eligible electors. Simple. I
Okay.
forget the number. Doesn't matter. And you put
It's like 25, isn't it?
something simple like that.
Yeah.
And then you have to put a deposit down of an X amount of money.
Okay.
Like a couple $100, whatever it is. I can't remember. It's my mind.
Yeah. No,
So
it's fine.
so then, okay, now you're in. You
Okay.
put your name in. So then, okay, what do I do now? All right. You've got to have lawn signs. Lawn signs are key.
Okay.
Okay, and then you start calling everybody you know.
So who makes those?
The lawn
Where do
signs.
you go?
Oh,
Yeah.
like
Like, let's keep it local.
yeah,
so
like Van Peltz.
Oh, Van Peltz
Yeah,
does that. Okay.
Van Peltz, McBain's.
Is that like impressions, printing, or McBain signs? Yes.
Impressions.
Yeah. Okay.
So impressions, McBain's. I'm sorry if I'm leaving somebody out. I'm not trying to.
Oh, I'm sure we can't cover
Van
them all.
Peltz. Like,
yeah.
but they all do signs.
Okay.
And there's a whole, by the way, there's a whole other sign strategy, just in what they're made of, how big they are.
Yeah.
What colors, Tony? Colors are very
huge.
important.
Yeah, absolutely.
When people, sometimes I'll see people's signs and it's like the contrast doesn't work and you can't see them.
Yeah.
Or the lettering's too small. And the other thing that I've learned is that don't put slogans and stuff all over your sign. You just want to see, don't make your first name small, because
Yeah.
it's your last name that people will see.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like
That's right.
it's real simple. Keep it contrast.
Yeah.
It's simple.
What about your face?
No.
Put your smiling
Some
face
people
right
do
on
that.
it. Yeah.
I would say for a higher level of politics or a little where people might not see you much, that might be a good idea.
So
But you know,
provincial, federal
last time I
politics,
checked,
maybe?
I don't look like Brad Pitt, so maybe it's better if my face is not on there. You know.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But that's you know that kind of stuff. But you get signs, then you go get things to hang on the door, door knocker things.
Yeah.
And you try to keep the detail to a minimum on those. You don't want to
Okay.
write your whole life story on them.
I know you're going to walk out. You're going to campaign, but where's this money coming from?
So what happens is,
I mean, for an average person that just
Yeah.
wants to contribute to the city,
Okay.
I want to do it. I'm not rich. Okay, how am I going to afford this? Like, I mean, everybody has a right to run, and same with like federal politics. You know, you want to become prime minister, you can.
yeah.
There's no reason why I can't run for it, but I could never afford that.
Right. It's not cheap.
No.
So I'm going to say last election, because I bought all new signs.
I mean,
for
it
the most
should
part.
not
It's-
be the way that elections are only for rich
right.
or people that can afford it. It just shouldn't be that way.
It cost me, I say about $6,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know somebody that was almost $8,000.
Yeah, like 6,000.
yeah.
Signs are not cheap,
And if you don't win,
and you can't claim your expenses.
okay.
Like that's like
So it's
like
not a loss on an income tax or nothing
No.
like that? Wow.
So you can ask people for donations.
Yeah,
People have been very kind to me and donated some money, but it's not something I'm going out asking for.
okay.
Because I'm not trying to sound anything other than
Yeah.
what I am. My wife and I have jobs such I can put enough away to run a reasonable campaign.
Okay.
I'm not going over the top. Like I'm very careful. I studied economics. I could squeeze the beaver off a nickel.
Yeah, okay.
I'm cheap.
Yeah.
But I'm all about value for the money, not the actual dollar value.
Okay.
But I can do that. Could I fund a federal campaign? No way, I can't. $50,000-$60,000, don't have that.
Well, that's why they are into donations.
So they have other sources of income. But that's yes. But for somebody running, I'd say that you've just got to get out there. And this is since you asked, this is my best advice. Knocking on doors is not sometimes the best use because you get talking to somebody for 15 minutes a door. Well, if you spend 3 minutes or 4 minutes each door. You're not going to get around too many places.
No.
What I want to do is I want to go and be across the street from the person that's helping me. I want to put door hangers on, talk to people when they see me around. Same with the person across the street. And then if somebody wants to talk to me, I will come back and see them. I got my phone. I get their number. They get my number. And I'll come back and talk to you for 25 minutes if you want at some point. But I got to get 500 houses done today. I got to get my stuff dropped off to 500 houses.
Yeah.
That's key. I appreciate people knocking on doors. The way the pros do it is that they have a team of like 7 or 8 people.
Right.
And they all knock on doors. And actually the person who's running doesn't knock on doors. You've got phones and they'll keep knocking on doors and they'll say, okay, somebody wants to see you at 88 Galbraith. Somebody wants to see you at, so then the candidate just goes to those individual houses to talk to people.
Specific ones.
Okay?
Yep.
While the team keeps moving.
Okay.
That's how it works.
I found that when Rose and I were campaigning in the Lake Margaret area, but so she took one side, I took the other. Door. I knocked on doors, Bill here, gave them the thing, said who I was, please, we, like to have your support. And then most comments were, wow, you're the first person that's actually come and seen me.
Yeah. People really appreciate
that. Yeah. And then I would say, would you like a sign?
Yes.
I would be more than happy to have a sign dropped off for you.
Yes.
And more, yeah, love one. Yep. Just because you came to my house.
Yep, people
They didn't
appreciate
even need
that.
to talk to her, so that was nice. And that was just me and Rose pounding the pavement. So I was too fat for that in the hot heat. So what didn't go over that well. Okay, let's move along.
Yep.
So let's just say, pickleball.
Yep.
There was a post you had up one time here not too long ago on Dennis Road. There's a new pickleball court.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
What's it called?
It's called the Courthouse.
It's called the Courthouse.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And so what's happening there is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 courts.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's one of those industrial buildings that's built by Volcano on the north side of Dennis Road.
Yeah.
And it's fitted out on the inside to be pickleball courts.
So, do you have to make a reservation to go play, or is it kind of you can just drop in there and say, hey, I want to play for a bit?
Okay, so my experience already, I've been there 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
And
you got to book a time.
Evenings and weekends are busy.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to play at 10 o'clock in the morning, you could probably go in, during the week, you could probably go and just get a court and rent a court. Yeah. So it's a great business. Okay. I strongly support this.
What is it with pickleball though? It's so popular. Like, what is it?
So what happens
I've never played.
So what happens for anybody out there is, I always compare things to different sports because I love sports. Like you can't just start being a good volleyball player when you're 21 because volleyball's got very specific odd skill sets, right? Okay. Pickleball, it's a small court. It's a paddle, it's a ball. You just hit it back and forth. You don't need to have a whole lot of athletic coordination to be able to participate.
Okay.
Okay? And learning the rules is the hardest part. It's a combination of table tennis and tennis and all those sort of badminton,
Right. Okay.
So it's an accessible sport. When I was there, I was playing Sunday afternoon there. Thank you to Linda Doan for inviting me. And all different ages. Some of my ex-students were in there. I saw some former students. They waved at them.
Oh, did they? Okay.
So you got people who are like 20s, 30s playing.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Okay. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're at 58 minutes, so 58, 59, somewhere in there.
Holy smokes.
Okay. I'm going to put these pictures up on the screen.
Sure.
Campaigning.
Yes.
Yeah, there's your sign.
Yeah, and those
Team Wookey.
And mine are purple and white.
Okay.
Because I went to Western.
Okay, that's where the colors come in.
And plus, I don't want I don't want it to be any particular political party.
But I see by the sign though, little name, first name small, large name.
Just Wookey. And Wookey doesn't have too many letters, so it's not like if your last name's Van Meppel and Shepping, then that's tough to fit in there.
That's gonna be hard. Yeah, I gotcha. All right, you ready for this one?
Yeah,
1978-79.
Oh, that was a great basketball team.
Is that you here?
That's me there.
I thought it was you there.
And then so here we go. Brian May.
Okay.
Brian May right there. Rich Heichel. I'm just pointing out people that from around town. Jeff Ballston, Dr. Ballston, Terry Johnson, and the crew.
Okay.
So that was a very good balance. Jerry Bukich, John Sean Marshall, and our coach, Mr. Dennis LaFontaine. Thanks, Dennis, for all the coaching you did. We beat Tilsonburg.
You probably can tell I was spoofing your Facebook.
Yeah, no problem. We beat Tilsonburg. That was important.
Okay, here's well, one of the close to the last one. Look at that one. What's going on here?
This is Halloween at school. I wore my tux that I got married in, and I had the vampire teeth, and that kind of freaked people out. Of course, look at that.
I saw that. I was like, oh, I got to get a print
That's
of
a
that
fun one.
there. So, yeah, and then the final one. Here's you at that pickleball court.
Yeah. So this is myself and
So-
Jamie Shaw, who's the owner, and then of course Big Joe in the background, and I was actually teaching at Central when Joe was there. So know him a little bit. I taught his older brother John economics, so I'm taking credit for all of the financial success of the family. No, that's recent, and that's great. It's a great spot. And like all I want, Tony, is for people to have a chance to be active and healthy.
Yeah.
And this is part of the solution.
Brings happiness too. When you're healthy
Just
and
get
active.
outside.
And
Get off the phone. Get outside.
All right, rapid questions. This is how we're going to finish it. All right.
Okay.
So what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Okay, 5 of them. What makes Steve happy?
Being outside.
Okay. What makes Steve mad?
Slow traffic.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite food?
Honestly, nachos pizza.
Oh, nachos pizza.
Like not just nachos pizza. Real simple stuff.
Favorite movie?
Let's see. Every year or so, I'll watch The Big Lebowski,
Oh, yes.
The Blues Brothers,
Okay.
and Indiana Jones.
Okay. All right. So those are kind of your go-to back.
Yeah, just if I'm bored, that's what
Okay.
I'll put on.
Now you and your wife.
Yes.
Okay, you're heading out on a road trip.
Yep.
It's just you two. Where are you going?
Let's see. Just a day trip or a trip?
Whatever. Say it's just going to be a weekend trip.
A weekend
Just,
trip.
You're off. You and the wife. Nobody around. Let's go. It's just going to be nice.
Let's see. We're going to go someplace and maybe see a play, go out for dinner. We're certainly going to stop at a few quilt shops on the way because my wife's going to make sure we stop at a few quilt shops. And that's kind of what we'll do. We might go see a concert, that kind of thing. So for a couple of days, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And, going up to Stratford, whatever.
Stratford. Okay.
Simple stuff.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Tony,
I appreciate you coming in.
Real pleasure.
Sir.
Real
All
pleasure.
right.
Thanks for
Anything
having me.
else you want to say to anybody? I mean, it's only you and me. Nobody watches this. So.
No, look, you and I were talking about this before I got on air. Like, if anybody wants to talk to me about anything, I'll tell you the way I see it.
Okay.
And I'll be honest and up front. And but anyone who wants to have a conversation,
So just pick up the phone, email.
honest to God, just
talk.
email me. Just email me, and we can chat.
Sounds good. Good advice. All right. Thanks, folks. There you go.
Thank you.
Steve Wookey, counselor, City of St. Thomas, former teacher. Still teaches, though. Yeah, he does. Once a teacher, always a teacher.
Mentor. I call it mentoring now.
Mentoring. There you go. All right. Thanks again for tuning in, and keep watching. We got lots of guests coming up, future shows. All right. Take care. Thanks. Bye. Good. We done?
Thanks, bud. That's good.